This is Nichel Anderson. I'm your host for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. Thank you so much for joining me for this new year, 2019. I'm very excited to continue on with my podcast here. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in when I started back for my second year, where last month in December, that was what I decided to do the month of December, shorts of short stories, where you got the full short story to get you more familiar with my production, MOLIAE, and more into the characters going forward from that point. So you got the whole short. This is a premium podcast, so when I do release the short clips, only, not the full short story, you will have to become like a patron member, and that link to my Patreon page is in the description, where you can click that link and start that membership there to be a patron, and you will get the full short stories that I release when they're clippets. Last month was a special month where I released a full short of that particular story, and it was cut to the point. It means that it was short of a short, so it wasn't that long, but you got a lot of information, and that's the takeaway from my stories. So this month in January, I decided to revisit one of my new short stories I released last summer in 2018, where it's entitled Mahogany. And just to give a backdrop on that for those that just tuning in, I released that during the summer. It was from my column, the Harlem Renaissance, where I was the editor at sweet101.com, and I took that column over and I wrote this story, and it was very popular. People liked it, and I did it for a while, and then of course eventually I went on to do other things regarding that time, that era. So this right here, Mahogany, is basically regarding a family in New York, in Harlem, and right before the Harlem Renaissance really took off, so the early mid-20s or what have you, this particular family that you're learning about, the main character is Jewels. She is the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Sands that owns a restaurant in Harlem. And so Jewels, young, I would say early 20s, and she's into the whole era, the movement of culture and the movement of to be something more than what she initially thought of being, just maybe a teacher or something like that, or she just wanted to do something different, and she wants to go into music and so forth. And so that's where I focused on introducing the family. And the last scene in that particular episode, there was a character named Tony, and he came into the scene, and all of a sudden the phone rang, and for some reason he urged Jules and her mother name is Bertha, to not pick up the phone. It was very mysterious, and you need to go back and check that particular episode. And right quick, I think I can probably tell you when that was, and that was published on July the 9th, 2018, and July the 23rd. So that was part 1 and part 2. So go back and check that out. Part 1 and part 2, Mahogany. Again, it was published on July the 9th and July the 23rd. So really the last part that we left, part 2, is in that moment where he was telling them not to pick up their phone. So let's go ahead and start for this month, and hope you enjoy my continuation. I will continue Mahogany for the complete month of January. So in this also month, you will get the full short. See how nice I am? So you got to consider to be a patron. Okay. Definitely recommend and share my podcast, support additionally that way. So for this month, you will get the full short story of Mahogany. Let's go ahead and get started for this week. Okay, for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. For this episode, bonus, Mahogany, Part 3. Opening scene. The room became enormously intense due to the only sound being the phone and the running water in the background coming from the washer room. Tony continues to look in Jewels' eyes and then at her mother, Bertha, on the constant watch for neither one of them to answer the persistent caller. Within moments, the three could only hear the water and no more ringing of the phone. Their breathing were then only the noise that could be heard that matched the rhythm of the running water. In a split second, the adjoining doors opened. Bobby and Bill Sands came into the kitchen. "Tony, what is this about?" Bill said with a stern facial expression. Bertha took one look at her husband and quickly grabbed her daughter's arm. The woman walked toward the adjoining door. However, Jewels had the desire to stay put. Jewels was eager to know the urgent matter concerning Tony, but Bertha had put pressure on Jewels' arm to follow her. The women made it to the far back room, and Bertha closed the door. Bertha walked over to the laundry basket near the long table that had a crystal vase in the center filled with fresh daffodils. Jewels instead had her focus on the closed door leading to the kitchen. She looked over to her mother, who continued to show no emotion. Bertha started to fold the garments in a neat stack on the nearby table. Jewels walked over to the laundry basket, and she started folding the garments as well. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, "I'm sorry, Mr. Sands, for just tell me what is the urgent matter. As you can see, my family is worried." Bobby's eyes jumped into Tony's mouth like a fish in the sea. Tony noticed and gave Bobby an intense glare to leave, in which Bobby quickly went back to the washroom. Tony returned his focus back to Bill Sands. "There seems to be an urgent matter, sir, at the second chapter conference." Bill saw Tony's facial expression of concern, so Bill motioned Tony to follow him out of the kitchen. They walked into the main area of Mahogany and went to sit in a quiet location in the nightclub. Bill sat facing the entrance as Tony sat across from him. "Speak, son," Bill finally said with a smooth tone. "Sir, I came over as soon as the other leaders learned of this crisis. They felt that you needed to be aware what is going down at the headquarters." "The planned meeting has been changed?" "Yes, sir. We are to meet in the morning, giving the younger messengers time to reach others that are unaware that—" "Tony, you can call me by my first name." Bill knew that Tony looked up to him as a father. At a young age, Tony's father was no longer with him. As a young boy. "Yes, sir. I mean to say Bill," he said, keeping his hands from moving. "There have been talk about that Sergeant Lowes has been doing some investigation of our conference unit and have ordered a—" "You mean on our head organizer? I have been hearing many of our leaders being questioned for some months now." Bill looked concerned as he went to sit down in his chair and lean back. Tony nodded. Bill sat up straight, but he let his hands under his chin, thinking. And then he looked back up to Tony. "Is that why you didn't want anyone to answer the phone?" Yes. I was afraid that it could be a setup by one of the Sergeant Lowes' men trying to get some knowledge that could hurt our mission forward. Some of the others said they had the same kind of calls. Tony's facial expression returned to that of a soldier. He wanted them to succeed. He wanted the mission to continue. "I agree. You did good, son." Bill leaned forward. "Now this is what I want you to do next." End scene. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. This right here again was the short of Mahogany, which I really enjoyed writing it back then when I was the editor of the Harlem Renaissance column at sweet101.com. I love history, and I love the whole drama, in a sense, how people connect, how they disconnect, hopefully how they come back and connect on the common cause. So I hope you enjoyed this particular episode 3 from part 2 episode. This is a bonus, so I'm coding this as Mahogany bonus, numbering it that way. And since the most of my production is my heart of hearts is on MOLIAE, but at any rate, this Mahogany is a very interesting type aspect of my writing. I'm able to intertwine historical elements to it and touch on the cultural framework of how people create things and communicate the way that we all have special talents. So in this particular era, I hope you enjoy as I'm touching on different things, as I'm talking about weaving in the pioneer, the extraordinary work of our ancestors, that we all, no matter what ethnic group we can identify with, we all can contribute and enjoy the art and the music and the messages that was communicated through that means of creativity, and through the people that aspire to not only social rights but also coming together as a community. So you see, if you can pick up on that or hear that, where I highlight those individuals and their works, especially when I'm focusing on in relation to W.B. Du Bois and those people around him, those many people that supported the cause of the Harlem Renaissance. So hopefully you enjoyed this return of Mahogany, and again, I will continue this on for the rest of the month of January. Happy New Year, and thank you for tuning in. Please go ahead and consider to share this podcast. Please consider to be a patron member, and thank you so much for your support. So long.